Dad yelled, "Leave and don't come back," so I did. Weeks later, they called asking why the card stopped working. What I said next left them speechless. The paper grocery bags dug into the creases of my fingers as I stepped through the front door. I'd just worked a 10-hour shift at the firm's skipped lunch and still made the stop for almond milk olive oil and those exact brand of crackers Mom insisted on. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and fried onions. My shoes squeaked against the tile. No one looked up. I placed the bags on the counter, exhaling. My wrists ached from behind me. Dad's voice cut the air. "You get my message?" I turned halfway. About what he moved into the kitchen, arms crossed, mouth tight. "Your mother and I have been talking. If you won't step up and contribute more, maybe you don't belong here at all." For a moment, I thought I misheard. Step up. You live on your own, have a good job, but this household is drowning. Your brother's still figuring things out. I'm retired. Your mom has her health issues? I've been paying the mortgage, I said, quiet, utilities, groceries, almost everything. Tobias called from the living room, not even bothering to look away from the TV. She acts like she's doing us a favor or something. My hands clenched around the edge of the bag. Crackers shifted, nearly tore the bottom open. I glanced down at the receipt, still folded in my pocket. $164.89. All for them. "I'm not acting," I said. My voice didn't rise. "I've actually been doing." Dad's jaw tensed. "Don't get dramatic." Mom appeared at the doorway. Arms crossed like a verdict. "We just want everyone to do their part. I've done more than my part." "Then why does it still feel like you're holding back?" Something in my chest turned to stone. I let go of the bag. It slumped onto the counter with a quiet thud. "I just got off work," I said. "But fine. You want more? I'll give you something." They watched me like I might scream, might cry. I didn't either. I walked to the door, pulled it open, and before stepping out, I said softly, "Then this house no longer has a daughter named Narina." I was raised to believe that being dependable was the same as being loved. If they could count on me, I mattered. If I came through, I belonged. It started small. I was 16 the first time I covered a utility bill. Mom had accidentally overdrawn the account again. I used part of my paycheck from the grocery store to keep the lights on. She kissed my forehead and said, "You're such a good girl. You'll always take care of us." That sentence became prophecy. By 25, I was covering the Wi-Fi water and most of the groceries without being asked. By 28, I was forwarding money for their car insurance, then quietly paying off Tobias his overdraft fees. He got a new phone every Christmas. I hadn't upgraded mine in 4 years. When Dad's prescriptions weren't covered 1 month, I drove across town on a lunch break to pick them up. No one reimbursed me. No one offered. "Family supports each other," Mom would say, then send a list of errands. I never asked for much. I wasn't the type to need gifts or praise. I just wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged as more than the one holding it all up. But it wasn't until I started keeping track that I realized how far things had gone. One night, a week before tax season, I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet. I listed every transaction from the past 8 months: utilities, groceries, car repairs, credit card minimums, co-signed loans, even Tobias's therapy bills, which I hadn't known I was still paying. Each line had a date, a purpose, and a total. The number at the bottom was $18,426.17. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I expected them to pay it back, but because I needed to see it. Needed to confront the truth in black and white. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as coverage. I printed the sheet, taped it above my desk in my 1-bedroom apartment, and didn't tell anyone. It wasn't for them. It was for me. A quiet reminder that I was not overreacting. That it wasn't just a few things here and there. That I was not wrong to feel drained. That night I made myself tea and looked around the room. The place was quiet, a little too quiet, but I knew I had to get used to it. Because silence, unlike obligation, doesn't demand repayment. The lease was short-term, the carpet was worn, and the walls were a shade of beige that no one could name, but the place was mine. I moved in with 2 suitcases, a coffee maker, and a bookshelf that took an hour to assemble by myself. No one offered to help, and for the first time I didn't feel hurt by that. The absence felt like space. Space to breathe. Space to exist. The texts came every other day. Mom's were long and winding, laced with guilt. Dad's were abrupt. Call your mother. Have you checked the mail? Tobias only texted when something broke, usually followed by a Venmo request. I didn't block any of them. I just turned off notifications. Let the silence stretch between us like a new language I was learning, one where I didn't have to translate exhaustion into kindness. My bank account pinged less now. No transfers, no rush deposits to cover overdrafts I didn't cause. I started tracking my own spending again, small things like herbal tea, a new shower curtain, groceries that didn't include anyone else's preferences. At night, I made myself dinner. Real meals, nothing frozen, nothing rushed. I played soft music while I cooked. I didn't check my phone. I didn't have to wonder what would be waiting on the screen. Some nights I'd lie in bed just listening to the hum of the ceiling fan. My body for the first time in years didn't feel like it was bracing for something. No one would knock. No one would barge in. No one needed anything. I started sleeping through the night. Full, uninterrupted hours. 8 hours turned into 9 on weekends. There was no applause. No audience, just the quiet sound of a life being rebuilt one breath at a time. I kept the spreadsheet on my desk, but I didn't open it much. I didn't need to see the numbers anymore to remember the truth. The distance had done what confrontation couldn't. It gave me room to stop performing. One Friday morning I checked the weather and decided to walk to work. The breeze felt honest. It didn't owe me anything, didn't demand gratitude or submission. And when my phone buzzed again, another message from home, I didn't flinch. I just slipped it back into my bag and kept walking. It had been 3 weeks since I walked away. 3 weeks of quiet dinners, 8-hour sleeps, and checking my own account balance without flinching. Then on a Wednesday morning, just as I stepped into my office building, my phone buzzed with a message from Dad. Why didn't the card go through? No greeting. No question mark. Just those 7 words, like I had missed a shift at a job I never applied for. I didn't reply. I didn't even stop walking. I placed my phone face down on my desk and poured coffee like it was any other morning. By noon, Tobias was calling. When I didn't answer, he tried again. And again. On the 4th attempt, I picked up. I figured I owed myself the right to hear how far they'd stretch. You knew we needed that money, he snapped before I could say a word. I said nothing. You think you can just stop helping and nothing happens? You think you're better than us because you've got some little apartment and a spreadsheet? Still, I said nothing. He hung up with a frustrated scoff. Not even a goodbye. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the bank's public property portal. I typed in the address of the house I grew up in. Pre-foreclosure. Final notice issued. My heart didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just stared at the screen, not surprised, just cold. I'd been sending $1.300 a month for nearly a year. Sometimes more. I'd never seen the actual mortgage statement. They never offered to show it. I thought I was helping. I thought I was preventing collapse. But now I saw it clearly. The money didn't go to the bank. It went elsewhere. I closed to the tab. I didn't need details. The truth was enough. They hadn't needed a daughter. They'd needed a system. And that system just broke. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the floor beside my little table. No music, no noise. They would scramble now, blame me, guilt me, twisted the silence into selfishness. But I wasn't part of the structure anymore. I wasn't the net catching their falls. I had simply stepped aside and watched gravity do its work. The phone lit up again. This time, Mom's name. I let it ring untouched until it faded away. I hadn't planned to call. I'd rehearsed silence, worn it like armor. But something about seeing that final foreclosure notice pushed me into motion. Not out of rage, out of finality. I waited until Sunday afternoon. They were always home then. Dad watching the game. Mom folding laundry with the TV on. Tobias pretending to look for jobs. I dialed the house phone. It rang twice. Hello. Mom's voice came sweet, stretched, thin. Narina. Put me on speaker. I said. A pause. Then the soft beep of the speakerphone. In the background, I heard the familiar creak of the kitchen chair, a soda can opening, the rustle of papers. I'm here. Dad said. Same. Tobias muttered. I inhaled once steady. Where did the money go? Silence? What Mom asked as if she hadn't heard. I sent over $1,300 every month for nearly a year. I checked the mortgage. It's in foreclosure. So I'm asking, where did the money go? Mom cleared her throat. Your father had dental work, and then the water heater broke. Ethan's car needed repairs. And the cost of groceries, it's been overwhelming. Tobias cut in. You act like we went on vacation. Stuff came up. We were going to sort it. Dad added, it's not like we meant to deceive you. Things just got ahead of us. I didn't yell. I didn't even sigh. You never showed me a bill. Never asked if I could afford it. Never offered repayment. You just assumed I would cover it. Quietly, Narina Mom started. We're family. You shouldn't need a contract. I nodded to myself. That's the thing. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have my name on the deed. I didn't even have a place at the table unless I brought something to it. No one spoke. I've read the emails. I've heard the voicemails. You've called me cold, selfish, dramatic. But I'm none of those things. I was your daughter. You turned me into your donor. A long breath on the other end. Then Dad's voice, low and brittle. You don't understand. Without you, we're losing everything. I looked out the window at the modest tree swaying in front of my apartment. No, I said quietly. You lost everything the moment you started seeing me as a balance sheet. I pressed end, not out of hatred, not out of anger. Just completion. The kind that doesn't need applause or permission. I placed the phone face down on the table and reached for the envelope I hadn't opened yet. The one with my name and their return address. The envelope was thinner than I expected. Inside was a final notice, words like delinquent default eviction proceedings printed in bold. My name was nowhere on the deed, but still the letter had found its way to me. Like they had wanted me to see it. Like they needed me to feel one last tremor of guilt. I folded it once. Then again, and tore it in half, not out of rage. There was no heat left. Just a quiet understanding that this wasn't mine to carry. It never had been. I opened our old group chat. The thread stretched back years, photos of birthday cakes I paid for, receipts from grocery trips, passive-aggressive emojis, dry requests. I scrolled until my thumb hurt. Then I stopped. One line. I'm not your backup plan anymore. Goodbye. I sent it. I left the group. Then I blocked them all. Mom. Dad. Tobias. The phone went still. Not silent. Stillness is different. Silence waits. Stillness accepts. I closed the banking app I'd left open and opened another one just for me. I'd created it a few months back. Unsure if I'd ever use it. It had no linked payees. No transfers out. Just deposits. Small ones. Until today. I went to the corner boutique I always passed on the way to work. The kind of place I used to think was too indulgent. Inside, I tried on a pair of soft leather shoes. They fit. I paid in full. No discounts. No guilt. When I walked out, I didn't feel like someone escaping anything. I felt like someone returning to themselves. Later that evening I made dinner just for one. I poured a glass of wine and lit a candle I'd been saving since last Christmas. The flame flickered steadily as if it knew something final had settled. The spreadsheet still hung above my desk, but I no longer needed it to remind me. The boundary wasn't in the numbers. It was in the breath I now took without flinching. They would call it betrayal. Abandonment. Selfishness. Let them. I had given my time, my earnings, my energy until I was emptied. Now I had given one last thing. A clean goodbye. And the space it left behind was exactly the size of peace. As I curled up on the couch with the new shoes beside the door, I opened a new tab on my laptop, one I hadn't dared open in years, and started searching for flights. The dining table was small, but it held more than enough. A slow cooker of lentils, someone's famous spinach dip, slices of cornbread still warm in the foil. Laughter drifted in from the kitchen as Nora and Gerald argued over who made the best chili. My contribution sat modestly in the center, lemon bars made from scratch. I hadn't hosted anything in years. Not because I couldn't, but because it never occurred to me that people might show up without expecting anything more than a seat and a story. We sat cross-legged on the floor plates balanced on knees, paper napkins folded just enough to look thoughtful. It was warm. Not just the apartment, the feeling. Unforced. Simple. At one point someone asked why I never talked about my family. It was casual, not prying. Just curiosity. I paused a beat, then smiled. Some stories are better closed, I said. No one pushed. They just nodded and kept eating. Later that night, after the dishes were rinsed and the laughter had faded into the quiet hum of my apartment, I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat by the window. The rosemary in the box beside me was finally sprouting. The leaves were still small, but they smelled strong when crushed between my fingers. I had started planting things in spring. Not just herbs, habits. On Saturdays I went to the farmer's market. On Wednesdays I took a yoga class. Some mornings I walked before work without checking my phone, and in the quiet moments between everything I wrote lists. Books I wanted to read. Places I wanted to go. Maine was at the top. I didn't know anyone there. That was the point. It felt like a place where silence would be scenic, not loaded. The money I once wired to save someone else's home was now quietly building a path towards something entirely mine. A solo trip. A new coat. A better mattress. Things that didn't require justification. I used to think home meant shared blood. Shared walls. Shared obligations. Now I knew better. Home was where I could breathe. It was in the rosemary on my windowsill. In the text from Nora asking for my lemon bar recipe. In the quiet hum of a ceiling fan that didn't come with tension or expectation. It was in the stillness after people leave and nothing feels broken. That night I folded a clean sheet of paper and wrote the words packing list. Maine at the top,